Hey guys, I'm going to talk about some of my history today in the My 30 Day World video series. So, I left off with question 322, what is the most nefarious villain in your world? And following that is the most renowned hero in your world. So I'm going to just try to hit some of the history type questions today to describe the world. So it's 22 is villain, 23 the March 23rd is hero, 24th is what event in your world altered its history, and I'm also going to cover a bit of which one is it? Actually, I don't think I'm going to cover any of the others today. 26. How common are adventurers and heroes in your world? So I did try to make up some historical events in the world. It was mostly the major historical events, such as like the ones you would study in a history text. So I've got, here's an estimated time when this nation was founded. There was a war between these nations here, etc., etc., etc. I kind of just did that, but I didn't actually sit down and write any historical notes about those times. I just kind of tried to put as far as like how well the cultures to get together and where the boundaries of the nations are. How far back in the past was this event? You know, there's going to be an amount of aging that comes with these sorts of events. So I wanted to have an idea of like how far back was this stuff. Um, I believe that I put on the calendar, the historical calendar, when there was a unified currency. I think I put that in there, or at least I put it in an area. Um, the exploration of frontiers, I did some of that stuff, but I didn't get down to nitty gritty details. So as far as there being a and now the nefarious villain or renowned hero in your world isn't necessarily historic. It could be current. Um, but as I said before, I kind of take a bit more of a simulationist approach to things. And the technology is that's another question later on, but it's not like we're in the electronic age. It's fantasy. So you don't have the internet spreading someone's fame across the world. So who's a renowned hero in one country won't be a renowned hero in another country. On top of that, it's actually probably pretty difficult to become a renowned hero even in one country. Because you have to really think about this. In an agricultural, low-tech society, low relative to modern day real life, you've got too many things going on in your life to worry about what's going on somewhere else. You really do. I mean, just me, even growing up in the 80s on a ranch in the middle of Missouri, USA, where my nearest neighbor was a mile away, and the National Forest was one of my other neighbors, so no houses there. Trying to run a ranch by ourselves with city-grown parents who didn't know everything or much of anything about running a ranch when they started. You had plenty to do. Fences to mend, land to clear, all different kinds of animals to take care of. We were our own shade tree mechanics, so if something broke down, we're working on that ourselves. Like that may seem unusual or a little hickish or rule now, but if you're talking about it's not an agricultural society, agrarian, that's the word I need. Agrarian society where you really do live off the land and live off of each other's produce that isn't done industrially, you don't have the time to mess with this stuff. Look, if you aren't in the capital city where a hero is doing his or her work in and out of, you're unlikely to hear about anything like this. If that hero doesn't happen to do an adventure in your town, you're unlikely to hear. Like, if you go to some random town of 2,000 dwarfs, the most renowned hero or nefarious villain is gonna be like a local dude who's done nothing that anyone else has ever heard of. So I didn't, again, as a simulationist, I didn't really ever even think about these questions. That it doesn't take place. Like I could have added more flavor by going to different parts of going to different major areas, or even if it's not a major area where a bunch of players were starting their campaign, and come up with some of these things. And this gives me a good. This list gives me a good, list over here on this monitor that I keep looking at. Gives me a good list of questions to add a lot more flavor to individual places as I drop my players into them. But as far as designing my world, again, because I'm doing a simulationist sort of world, and I don't even think you have to be very simulationist to actually have a world where there's this one hero that everyone knows about. That's not just non-simulationist. I think that's a little cartoony. That's not a bad thing. That's not a criticism. What you detected was distaste, not criticism. I don't like that approach. I mean, obviously, I lean simulationist, so why would I like the cartoony? I mean, unless it was just I like to dance on this side once in a while kind of thing, but I don't. So I never really thought about that. What event in my world altered its history? Like, I even struggle with that question. Unless you're doing time travel where this was the line that the history was supposed to take place, and this event over here, and now it happened over here. It didn't alter your history. Your history is your history. But I don't think really that's what people meant by that question. I think they just kind of meant like what made a huge drastic impact in your world. And again, I'm struggling with that. Like I kind of built the world where it was, and I only had a few thoughts about what happened before. My world didn't have like a dark age. If I want to I'm trying to think of some real life things. It didn't go through like a dark age or a renaissance. It didn't go through world wars. Again, that makes relative sense if you got an agrarian level society, which most fantasy worlds are. There's no reason for nation over here on the East Coast to get involved in a war between these two people over here on the West Coast or in another continent. Heck, they probably don't even know about it except for maybe some word of mouth from ships that come to harbor or something like that. But that information is not going to spread. It's not going to penetrate the rest of the nation. So, I mean, I think for these sorts of things to be right, like your magic, your world, again, this is just my 30-day world, right? This could apply to anyone. So if they're playing a modern world, they're playing a science fiction world, these are all really relevant questions from a fantasy world perspective. That kind of question, I feel like, is only really relevant if your magic is to the point where you've got like lots of teleportation and things like that, so you can hop from city to city. You've got some fantastical creatures, like maybe the dragons of the Pern series from Anne McCaffrey that have a teleportation ability of themselves, so you can hop on them and ask the dragon to take you to that city, and then boom, you're over there. Without this kind of stuff, you're not going to have this world-penetrating knowledge. You're not going to have these world-penetrating events. So let me get back to my thought process. There were no Dark Age, no World Wars, no industrialization. I think the biggest thing there would just simply probably honestly be the unification of the currency. That's probably been one of the most world-penetrating ideas. And then I said I was also going to take on 26. How common are adventurers and heroes in your world? Very common, honestly, but not in the D&D fiction novel sort of way, like a Dragonlance book or something like that. And I figure that kind of makes sense, again, simulationistly. Because if they were common, then would they really be heroes or adventurers? I mean, maybe they'd be adventurers, but would they be heroes? Like heroes have to be kind of the top, right? Um, I don't know. Maybe not. I'm just kind of shooting that out there. I haven't really written a thesis on that or anything. Um, but adventuring is fairly common. Um, Simply that it's a good place for people. It's kind of like instead of there being a geographical frontier, there's um, the tightness is felt in the economy, right, in the employment place. So people take jobs to do things. In my world setting and the way I kind of look at it, I even look at just if you're a mercenary, you're an adventurer. Your alignment has nothing to do with it. Whether you're fighting for good or for evil has nothing to do with it. If you are blazing your own path or blazing the path for others, you're kind of an adventurer. That doesn't count military because military is more of a profession. Like you are enrolling in that military if that was by choice at all. Excuse me. To and then you may be either fighting wars or securing borders or securing cities. That really isn't going out there and doing anything. You may be involved in something. In the last campaign I ran, I had folks who discovered a layer of a magical beast that's really bad, and reported it back to the city, and the city, mages and administration kind of got together and the paladin sect and came together and said, well, we gotta, we know what this is how it works, we need to take care of this or it's going to be bad. So they enlisted the same heroes that reported it, the same adventurers who reported it. They enlisted some mages, they enlisted some paladins, and some military to go stomp this nest out. So the military people were kind of involved in an adventuring scenario, but that was more because their job is the protection of the city or the region or whatever. So anybody who is guarding caravans for different people, maybe even just guarding caravans, I kind of have as a low level adventurer in my world. Like I guess if they kept doing that for 5-10 years, I would not really consider them adventure anymore. They are professionally a caravan guard, and the military, like I said, not. But some of my PCs have been former caravan guards, or some of the NPCs who are other adventurers that my PC adventurers are dealing with have been former caravan guards. Like that, so that's a fine place to start off from, you know. But yeah, basically anyone going out there solving other people's problems or causing other people's problems are all adventurers in my world. So they're actually pretty common, but running Rollmaster is such a fatal system, and maybe this is also another reason why I didn't really think about nefarious or renowned heroes. The chance that you're going to die before you get up to a really high level is pretty darn good. So, yeah. So there's a constant need for these people too. It's not like, well, we gained 50 adventurers this year, we're kind of topped out on adventurers. No, because by the end of the year, you're probably down to 25 adventurers out of those 50. So, that's it, I think. There's definitely some other world building stuff, and I kind of want to talk about that next, but I might just follow you. I think I will. I think I'll continue with a question for March 27th, which is what's your world's biggest secret, and kind of talk about more of the world building from there. All right? Talk to you guys later.